If you are watching us from the last home you'll ever own tonight, consider yourself lucky. But if you're among the millions trying to sell, this was a very bad day. The National Association of Realtors reported the worst month-to-month drop in existing home sales since they started keeping track in the late 90s. And compared to last year, closings are down more than 25%.
I wrote the book because I was tired of answering the same questions to the same millennials. And even, listen, I say millennials, there are people that had never bought a home before that are 50 and 60 that are asking the same questions, if not worse questions than millennials. And that's what actually inspired me to write the book, because I was tired of saying the same thing. I was getting blue in the face of repeating myself. So I'm like, listen, I'd rather give you my book for free rather than have an hour-long conversation with you explaining something that you're not going to either agree with or you're not going to like to hear.
Welcome everybody to Inside Hollywood on the Hudson. I'm your host, Michele Servino, and Millennials, I want you to pay attention. I have Jeff Vannote with me. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Super excited.
I'm so excited for our guest today, for you to be a guest today, and for us to talk about how your influence in millennials and real estate is so important today. So let's talk a little bit about you first and about your background.
So I would say I'm definitely in the wrong industry, unfortunately. The industry.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Do we not have a book here?
It's kind of funny how it works out. So I'm a sports guy. I've always been a sports guy. I played sports my whole life. Like if I came home out of school or I was sick, all I did was play sports or play video games that were sports. When my college career came to an end, I got cut abruptly. I'm like, well, what do I do now? How do I still go out there and survive in society, right? When I don't have sports on a daily basis. I got into the mortgage business at age 20. So now I'm 32, 12 years later, looking back at it, it's been a long 12 years, but I learned from the ground up. I learned when, the market was at its absolute worst.
The market was a very crazy time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think those were the times when people were going into bidding wars, and I just think the market was...
It was scary.
It was definitely, they were handing out mortgages like candy.
Better than candy. It was easier than candy.
It was easier than candy.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I never saw that part of the business, because when I got into it, those loans had already been gone, right?
Oh, okay.
So I kind of think of it as like an explosion goes off, right? You don't hear the explosion, you don't see the explosion, then you walk in and you're like, wait, why is there like destruction everywhere? And that's kind of where I started, right? I didn't know what caused people to lose homes. I didn't know what caused the foreclosures or the short sales or the bad credit. I was kind of like late to the party, if you will. I saw the aftermath of it. So when I started, the whole business kind of got rewritten, and because, it wiped out, I think it was a stat like 95% of the industry, real estate and mortgage people, owners, landlords, mortgage loan originators got wiped out. So for every 100 people, there were only 5 left, and me being a 20-year-old kid, not knowing any better, I'm kind of like, oh, this is cool. I could do this, So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise looking back at it.
What was your biggest struggle at that time?
It was a lot. So I think my biggest struggle on a personal level was the delayed time to overcome the fact that my dreams got crushed, football. So while I was battling that internally, really the biggest struggle was dealing with, it wasn't getting the deal, it was dealing with the jaded people that were in the industry, right? Everyone was negative. Everyone's income went from, as an example, $400,000 a year to maybe $100,000 a year. And I was like the optimistic kid. I was like the high energy person in the room. I was going out there really to help people. But unfortunately, I was surrounded with people that, just experienced carnage left and right. On top of that, ego and personality, both on my side and many other people's sides. But I always went out there with everyone's best interest in mind, right? Unfortunately, because my industry was 25 or 30 years older than me and had just experienced the worst economic collapse, I had a lot of people that, frowned upon me, looked down on me, and tried to do things to potentially, devastate my career. Because they were insecure of a 20-year-old kid coming in and making 2 or 3 times the amount of money that they were. So they looked at it as, well, I've been in the business 20 years. This kid's been in it, 9 months, and he's making 3 times the amount of money doing 3 times the amount of deal I am.
Right.
You know?
And did you feel like 3 times the amount of work or 10 times the amount of work was actually what you were putting in?
Well,
or?
see, that's what people didn't see, right? It's always easy seeing results,
Right.
Meaning like, oh, wow, this person did, 100 deals this year. They don't see what it got to get those 100 deals,
Sure.
So like I said earlier, I worked so from 20 to 24, so from 2008 really through 2011, beginning of 2012, I worked 15 plus hour days, 7 days a week, no days off. And if I took a 1 or 2 day vacation somewhere, I was glued to my cell phone. So it really wasn't a vacation. It was more of like me going out with my friends, like, all right, I'll come with you, but I'm not going to be mentally present. So I struggle with that part too, in my social life, but it all pays off in the end for sure.
It certainly does. So here you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about where you are right now. I mean, there's a lot of things happening. You seem to have created this amazing brand. Let's talk about your branding and how you got there.
It's like anything else. When you first implement an idea or a theory to the market, and nothing like it has ever existed before, people are like, "That's stupid. What are you doing? Why would you leave this, $400,000 to $600,000 per year career income? Like you're walking away from a gold mine, right?" And what I learned is happiness is super important, right? And I said, you know what, I can continue to make $400,000 to $600,000 a year probably forever in my life. My quality of life is going to suffer, right? Because it's a lot of work to do that type of mortgages. But you have to take a couple steps backwards to take leaps forward, right? And I thought that creating an educational platform for the next generation, for the next wave of home buyers, homeowners, people who inherit properties, will be so much more valuable long term, and it fills a void inside the marketplace, right? Whereas, again, people like to go out there just to make money. I didn't get in the business to make money, right? Money came as a reward for hard work, commitment, dedication.
Isn't that the way it always is?
It is.
I don't think most people realize that.
It is, and truthfully, in 2012, right, when banks were just throwing stupid money at me to come on board with them, try their brand out, try their platform out, I took the bait. Now, you got to remember, so yes, I was in the business for, let's call it 4 years at this point, but from an age standpoint, I was only 25 years old.
Right.
So if someone comes to you as a 25-year-old and says, listen, I'm going to pay you double, I don't know many 25-year-olds that would say, no, let me just stay on the path I'm on.
Right.
So I did fall into that money play. And as soon as I started focusing on the money, the business became not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't fun from 08 to 11 and 12, because of like the struggles and the complications.
But I guess if you think about it, like, it really was fun and it really is exciting because it was something new for you and you were successful at it, right?
So I think it was more, so I'm the type of person I like to challenge myself. So because it was so challenging, I always equated it back to sports, right? So I was like, okay, well, if you give me your mortgage, that's like catching a pass. If I close your mortgage and close your deal and you buy your home, that's like scoring a touchdown. So I didn't look at it as doing loans or getting closings. I look at it as catching the ball and scoring a touchdown. So I always incorporated that fun play into it. And I really used my platform as an educational platform always, but really to develop relationships.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's where it's
So we have to take a short break. We'll be back in a few minutes right after this.
Hudson TMA reminds you that bikes these days come in a wide variety of styles and sizes. Here are a few tips to follow when selecting a bike for your child or yourself.
Getting a bike that fits makes it easier and safer to handle and much more enjoyable to ride. Make sure there's an inch or two between you and the top tube on a road bike. And on a mountain bike, you want the clearance to be more like 5 inches to make it easier and safer to get off the bike on rough terrain. Adjust your seat height so there's a slight bend in your knee when your foot is on the pedal in the downmost position.
Hudson TMA reminds you that a helmet can only protect your head if you wear it. Take a tip from Elizabeth and Xander.
So just think of your helmet as part of your gear. You don't see a soccer player without shin guards.
You don't see a basketball player without shoes.
So don't ride your bike without your helmet. It's part of the gear.
Let's take a look at proper helmet fit. The size of a helmet is very important. It should fit comfortably without rocking from side to side. The helmet should fit level on your head and low on the forehead, no more than 1 or 2 finger widths above the eyebrow. Adjust the lengths of the straps so that the buckle is centered under the chin. Side straps should be adjusted so that they form a V shape under and slightly in front of the ears. Lock the slider if possible. Buckle the chin strap and tighten it until snug. No more than 1 or 2 fingers should fit under the strap. Lastly, make sure the helmet is secure and doesn't rock back and forth. If a big yawn doesn't pull the helmet down on your head, tighten the chin strap.
We're back with Jeff Vannote, and Jeff is here telling us about millennials and retirees who need to retire and are struggling, right?
They want to retire.
Want to retire and struggling,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who have not really set themselves up.
Sure.
And then, of course, we have the millennials who are trying to make ends meet.
And get out of parents'
And get out of parents' basements and student loans and credit card debt.
Yep.
So give us your advice. There are millions of people who are in this bubble.
The two biggest problems, in America, in my belief, there's many political issues, obviously, but it's retirement for people that are older, that work their whole lives and have nothing to show for it. And millennials, younger kids, eventually they won't be millennials anymore, kids that come out of high school or college and don't know what direction to go into, or if they do go to college, are saddled with a tremendous amount of debt. So we've created a platform for people of all ages to basically buy 3 properties in 3 years with under $40,000 out of pocket and have some type of substance and cash flow, which they could either use that cash flow in order to pay off their student loans that they have. Like if you have $1,500 a month in student loans, well, let's try and help you get a multifamily property where not only can you live rent-free, let's say you buy a 4-family home, you can live rent-free, rent 2 of your units out, maybe put one of your family members in the 4th unit, have them pay you maybe a couple dollars a month in rent, and use either your tax savings or your larger tax refund to pay off your student loans. So rather than you earning your income and paying off your student loans, creatively use real estate to pay off your student loans and still build wealth over time and have someone else pay down your mortgage.
So this program is something that you've actually created and have found it to be successful.
Myself and my partner, actually, Frank Dipple from America's Mortgage Lender, he was the one that was smart enough to take the current loans available in the marketplace for mortgages and put it on paper and develop the theory. I came up with the brand, the concept, and the marketing behind it. And the fact that I am a millennial in my book, two things went hand in hand. So it was actually his idea. I give him full credit for it.
Okay.
Now it's my job to put the fuel behind it and really push it across America.
And how many people would you say are successful? I mean, hundreds?
In
Thousands?
developing this product?
Yes.
So I think it comes down to a lot of people want to do it, right? Usually people have blemishes that they know about that they don't want to release. Like, hey, I missed my car payment. Hey, I don't have $40,000 now. Hey, my
I don't know many people who have $40,000 sitting in the bank saying,
and you don't, right?
gosh, I don't know what to do with that kind of money.
Us either, right? So what we do is we say, we don't care where you are, who you are, what you come from, how much money you have. We don't even care if you have a job right now, right? But until you take the initiative to contact us, we can't help you. If you're sitting there knowing or thinking to yourself it's not possible, it's never going to be possible.
So this program is really available for anybody.
Anybody, any age. And we say it's for millennials because, again, we did create it for millennials to...
With millennials in mind.
Well, that keeps the market flowing, right? So the next 10 years is going to be fueled by millennials that are coming out of college to buy properties, but they're going to become renters because they don't think they can buy with low down payment options. Unfortunately, the big banks tell you, hey, you need 20% down and 700 credit score to buy a property. You don't. You need a 580 credit score with 3.5% down to buy a property, and you could buy a 3 or 4 family home. We even implemented it for veterans, where a veteran can come out of the military and buy a property, 3 or 4 family, with no money down immediately day one, so long as they have income. So not only are millennials a target audience for this, but giving back to our veterans who served our country.
Fantastic.
Buy property, live rent-free, put no money down, and make money and create a retirement for yourself. I mean, it's just plans the next 20 to 40 years of successful-minded people.
Now, do you take it to the next step and say, okay, you have one property. I have a success here. Here's the second property. Here's your 10-year goal. Here's your 20-year goal. Is that where you're headed with all of this? Because I think that's, I think most people don't realize, like, I can't believe 15 years ago, I was pregnant. I can't believe that, I have a 13-year-old. Like, so it's kind of crazy how quickly time flies and how you don't, and if you think about how much you've survived, right? So
you look back at 15 years, like 15 years ago, my hairline was much better, absolutely, completely, but the mortgage business did it. I was 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid, right? But then you look and like, wow, you know, much has happened in 15 years? Like, yeah, it was done in a blink of an eye, but a lot's gone on in that same time frame, that 4,000 plus days that existed, right? Probably close to 5,000. So I feel like, you know, if people stick to the system and the script that works, it works. Whenever you create a plan and you follow your plan accordingly in a black and white system, it's gonna pan out. The problem is people usually deviate from the plan and make an emotional decision.
Got it.
And once they make that emotional decision, again, for example, okay, here's the platform, let's do this, and then you throw into the mix, oh, well, you know, I was single when I started 3, 2, 1 and done, which is the product, but now my girlfriend wants to buy this $1 million condo. Well, now you just ruined the whole plan. You deviated from the system. That doesn't fall into how we structured this, you know, last year when you bought your first property. And we actually have a very good friend of mine that I met in 2016 that's closing on his property today, which is awesome because he's a testimonial that he's gonna follow it. And 3 years from now, you're gonna be able to look back at it as a testimonial and say, I was guided in the right direction. My property that I bought's up, you know, $100,000 or $200,000 in value, and I'm making $3,000 to $6,000 a month in my pocket just from following the system.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how do you encourage the people who are trying to retire and are struggling?
So being real, you know, unfortunately, again, like the people in the older generations were workers. Most of them were hard workers, right? They're baby boomers, if you will. They were also given a lot of wealth as well. Some of them, not all of them.
Sure.
I think, again, it's just being real and setting realistic expectations. So first thing to do is, you know, figure out what your budget is and figure out how much you need to retire in a certain time frame, and then do what you have to do. I can tell you that if I was 65 or 70 years old right now and didn't have the luxury or affordability to retire, that'd be pretty devastating. You know, because then you look back at all the things that you spent money on, and you're like, didn't need to do that, didn't need to do that, and now I have to, you know, kill myself for the next 15, 20 years to even have the possibility of retiring at some point. But I also don't believe in retirement, if that makes sense. You know, once you retire, they say you die.
I am kind to agree with you.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to really keep moving
Sure.
and always be working. And I think that work is a fulfillment for some people, but for everybody, it's not. But for, I think, people like you and I, we really thrive on, you know, working and trying to,
I think it's like staying busy and like, you know,
Yeah.
doing it for the better cause. So like if I had somebody who was in their, you know, late 60s, early 70s, let's say they owned their home with no mortgage on it, right? I would advise against that. I would say, okay, well, take out a small mortgage against your home, buy a multifamily investment property, right? And make money on your money. Because you having a house that's not paid off opposed to you having a house with a $100,000 mortgage on it, for example, where you're paying $600 or $700 a month, right, to your mortgage.
Sure.
What if you buy a 4-family where you're bringing in $3,000 a month net rental income? So you're making $3,000 to pay $700. You're still making $2,300 a month extra, and that's what I would recommend.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to take a break. We'll be back in a few minutes.
We have to be able to police ourselves because we don't want anybody to tarnish our badge.
When internal affairs complaints are not handled properly, the public may believe that most officers commit crimes, when in fact that's not true. Most officers are professional.
If complaints aren't taken properly and the community that we serve doesn't have a trust in the police department, I mean, there has to be legitimacy. If the community doesn't trust the police, how could we effectively serve them? And by having a really comprehensive internal affairs unit that handles the complaints properly and people have trust in the system, it enables us to do our entire job as a police department much better.
We need the community as much as they need us. So that citizen that has lost trust in the community could be a very important witness for us tomorrow.
Introducing the MyJCMC app, powered by Practice Unite. The free MyJCMC app puts the power of healthcare at your fingertips. Go to the concierge for access to referrals, scheduling, and appointments, see emergency room wait times, and get directions to Jersey City Medical Center health locations. Read the latest JCMC news through their social media feed, find a doctor, and more. The MyJCMC app. We belong to you.
Hudson TMA reminds you that a bicycle is considered a vehicle. When you ride a bike, you must obey the rules of the road.
Ride single file in the same direction as traffic. Obey traffic signs and signals. Signal your turns and look behind you before you turn. And always stay alert.
Back with Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today and talking to our guests about their finances and what they should be doing, especially the millennials who are, I think they're so eager to be out in the world today, and you know, and it's great, but I think everybody could really use somebody like yourself who's so knowledgeable in the world of real estate. And you know, I'd like to start to talk about your book. So you are a published author, right? Jeff Vannote, The Mortgage Playbook for Millennials. And I love all the references to the, you know, football. I think it's really super cool. So what inspired you to sit down and write a book, and how did that all happen for you?
You know, I never thought I was even eligible to write a book, truthfully. And then some lady approached me one day and was like, "Hey, I really want to write your book." And I'm like, you don't even know my story. How are you gonna write my book if you don't know my story? And I wound up actually contracting her. She got me to give her $2,000. We spent a couple months together, you know, meeting in person. And then 3 weeks before, like, the first edition was supposed to be ready for my review, she backed out. And I was like, well, okay, you can back out, but where's my $2,000 back?
Yeah.
She's like, no, whatever. It's a long story short. I was like, man, I gotta take a different approach to this.
Right.
But I look back at it and I'm like, well, you know what? My real story isn't complete yet, but this segment's always been complete. And like, the market needed this more so than it needed another feel-good story or, like, you know, story of someone overcoming obstacles and boundaries, right? So I always wanted to incorporate sports into business. I think they go hand in hand. And if you're not a sports person, that's totally fine. There's another
I have to tell you, I have
yeah.
a sponsor like Sirius XM Radio.
Yeah.
I show up there and they're like, who do you want to meet? And I always say, I don't really
Who?
care.
Yeah,
like,
who? Yeah.
my husband dies, but I literally am always like, I don't really care. I'm just here to talk business.
Yeah,
like,
so, you know, it's interesting. So I created the Mortgage Quarterback brand after I had already previously been coined the closer. So, like, Mariano Rivera played for the Yankees. He's like the best closing pitcher of all time. So back in 2008, being in the Bronx, people were like, man, you're the closer. So I started marketing myself next to Mariano Rivera without his permission. I was hoping he would sue me so I'd get, like, famous because of it. So I'm like, all right, the closer, closing tough deals, getting deals done, basically doing what's needed. And then that was more of a sales approach. Like, I'm coming in as the killer to close the deal. Like, that's my purpose. I got to close the deal. So you sell your house, you buy your house, you get your mortgage. That's what the purpose was at the time. The business, because of what's gone on, has shifted to an educational platform. So I saw myself being more of an advisor than a killer closer. Now, I still have it in me to go out and kill and close deals. But educating people is really where my passion is. So if you think about the quarterback mentality, if you are a sports person, I'm sure you know who Tom Brady is or Eli Manning is. Like, they're the franchise. They're the face of the team. They're the ones that tell, hey, you go do this, you go do that, you run that way, and they're leading the locker room, they're leading the huddle. So in a real estate transaction, you've obviously bought a house before. You know, you have your attorney, you have your realtor, you have your title company, your home insurance company, your appraiser, your home inspector, your home contractor. There's so many different people that when you're a first-time home buyer, you really don't know anybody. So they would come to me, and I would find myself just delegating them in the right direction to the right people and putting them in the best place to win. So that's how the mortgage quarterback came about, where, you know, I wasn't a mortgage loan officer. I was the mortgage quarterback because I was quarterbacking people really to their home purchase or, like, their real estate financing needs.
That's cool.
Yeah, so
and
that's how it
really
all
just
came about.
Connecting people with their, and you're right. Like, I remember when we bought our first home, you know, I didn't know what lawyer, even what real estate agent, to be completely honest with you. I remember our real estate agent, the first one I used was like a friend of a friend, and I lost out on many different deals because they weren't experienced enough. They didn't know how to present the deal appropriately. And I think that those, you know, those things are like rookie, you know, really total rookie moves, and, you know, can be devastating.
Well, here, people make the biggest mistake, right? That's an emotional decision. So what I do now is obviously educate and inspire people to buy real estate. My main business is actually commercial mortgages and investment loans for people, right? Why? Because it's black and white, it's numbers, it's not emotional. Like, you wouldn't walk into, you know, a house in Patterson and be like, yeah, this is a great emotional purchase. I love this because the siding is great, right? You'd be like, well, 3-family, Patterson, I'm gonna make 15% income on my money, right? Interest on my money. That's an investment. Numbers make sense. You do that. Whereas again, when you have a husband or wife and kids, you're making an emotional decision to put your family under. But also people, when they look to go buy their first home, they're like, well, I'm going to wait for my best friend Jessica to get her real estate license. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing you could do because Jessica's never put a deal together before.
Right.
So you're going to put your first time home purchase in someone's hands that's never done it.
People don't realize how devastating and how inappropriate and inexperienced people can completely.
In this game, they'll get eaten alive, and unfortunately, yes, they suffer, they lose out, but it's the consumer that suffers the most.
Sure.
Because you lose out on obviously a potential purchase or your dream home because they don't know how to negotiate or present the deal property, like you said.
So do you suggest when people are doing their commercial businesses, do you set them up with like an LLC and really just kind of make it broader so that like, hey, you're a business owner,
Sure.
you know.
So I'm a plug and play kind of guy, right? So I've opened up plenty of businesses, you name it, from real estate to tax offices to fix and flip properties. You name it, I've done it by 30. I did a lot in that 10-year window. Every single person is so unique and their goals are so individual that without knowing what their goals are or what they think they want to do, I can't best advise them. But I always recommend an LLC from a limited liability standpoint.
Sure.
God forbid something happens and you get sued. You don't want your personal home and all your personal assets, covered into that. But yeah, there's so much smart money out there and there's so much smart, advisory out there that the key is just dealing with the right people and the right team, putting everyone together in the best position to help everyone succeed based on what their goals are.
Yeah. So do you think that everybody should buy this book, read it, and it has questions and answers, right?
Sure.
Like, doesn't it?
There's a ton of tips in it.
Yeah, a lot of tips in here, and it's really just a great book for millennials, for anybody who is interested in real estate, anybody who needs to pay off their student loans.
Sure. This is more like a glorified business card, truthfully, right?
Okay.
So I did it to give people, I've never met one person that's read it that truthfully hasn't learned one thing, right? So for $9, I didn't price it at $20, $30, I priced it at $9.99. I make $2 or $3 per book sold, truthfully. And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, I didn't do it to make money. I did it more for the brand and the recognition, right? Of, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. So it's for anyone that wants to learn one thing in real estate. And if you learn 5, 10, or 15, excellent. The biggest chapter in there that I think is the most valuable is how to value a property. Because anyone that's in real estate needs to know, based on current federal guidelines, what appraisers look for when valuing a home. So whether you own a home, want to buy a home, or don't even care but want to learn about real estate, that chapter is at least going to teach you, well, what's this actually worth and how do the federal government advisors make the appraisal valuation process move forward. So if you think your house is worth $500,000, this book might teach you it's either worth more or less based on the rules.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Jeff, where can everybody get this book?
The giant kill, Amazon. It's all on Amazon.
All on Amazon.
Yeah. Mortgage Playbook for Millennials. Just go to Amazon, search it, it comes right up.
Check it out, everybody. Make sure you go and get this book. Jeff, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
We are so thankful for your knowledge, and keep at all the hard work.
Awesome.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, everybody, that's it from Inside Hollywood and the Hudson. I'm your host, Michele Servino. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.